I'm inside, bro.
You're inside. I'm inside.
I don't see you, bro.
I don't see you either. All I see is kaiju, bro.
Come in here, bro. Yeah, I see kaiju.
Come in
too,
where?
bro. Come on.
Yeah, come in where?
Bro, come inside the house, bro. Come on.
Yo, what the fuck is
Come on.
When I was 15, Paranormal Activity actually came out. My friend and I decided to try the Ouija board. We spoke to this guy named Frank, and I remember he used to say fucked up things like, "My mom is standing behind you and she doesn't like you. I'll overdose on pills."
Oh my god.
God damn.
Bro.
What the
Imagine
fuck?
having a friend like that.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
By the way, my mom's behind you and she don't fuck with you at all. I'm like, alright, bet. I'm out.
Like,
and the best case scenario is that he's a psycho. Like, that's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
You're just insane, yeah.
just casually knows a dude named Frank saying shit like that. What the? Ah!
I'm good.
Damn.
What
Yo.
happened?
Dude, I didn't even look at the Enderman. This dude's racist.
Why are you looking at him, brother?
Yeah. Why are you looking at him, bro?
Bro, I didn't even look at
Okay,
him.
so-
This dude's a
So
dick.
for any amount of money, would you guys ever fuck with a Ouija board? I know
No.
Yashi already, like, Yashi automatically knows. What about you guys?
I don't think it's... Cause like in my mind, either the house is fucked or I'm fucked. I don't even know the logistics of like ghost signs, but like I swear to God, if you do that shit,
Gosh.
I swear to God, that shit sticks to you.
Happened?
We're about to get raided.
Wait, what? What do you mean?
Huh?
Oh!
This is
Oh!
villagers outside our house.
No!
Oh my gosh, they're coming in.
What the fuck?
Wait!
The villagers
Wait,
are coming.
I'm here.
I'm one shot.
Come here, you fucking bitch.
Wait.
Stupid fucking bitch. I got one.
In a way.
Did you kill them all?
You got some. I killed one.
Yo, how's this... Bro!
Damn.
Bro, he's like air attacking me. This guy's a fucking scammer. Oh yeah, fucking mom standing behind you. Blah blah blah. Overdose on pills. Just weird and cray dark shit. My friend and I both thought we were fucking with each other, trying to freak each other out. A few weeks later, I was sleeping in bed and I had a shelf above my bed head that had my grad Teddy from primary school sitting on top. Teddy had sat there for years without being moved, and there was a dresser with a mirror at the end of my bed. I woke up to the Teddy falling on top of my head. When I would wake up, look up directly into my mirror. There I saw a girl brushing her hair in front of my dresser.
What?
The hell? I rubbed my eyes numerously, and instead of her disappearing, she became more clear. But the more I stared,
Nah, dude.
it was like I was looking at myself when I was even younger, like 6, 7 years old. And she had
Is he
thick...
trying to say? Is he
Yeah.
trying to call himself bad? Like.
I don't know. Like, is this like, cause this is the Ouija board story, so I don't know if this is like just, well, I'm actually curious. See, she had thick, burned hair, but she was wearing a very old style type of like nightgown. Soon realized it wasn't. I hid under the covers, and after checking numerous times to see if it was gone, she finally disappeared. Fully freaked me the fuck out. Anyway, we stopped doing the board and did other normal things teenagers do. I never told anyone about what I saw.
Real quick, Yashi, this is my formal apology and moment of truth. I give you this.
Wow.
I present to you a gift.
Nice. Thank you. Wow.
Okay.
Where did he even get? He sounded... An avocado! Thanks!
Avocado.
Never told anyone about it, what I saw, but a few friends, but put it down that I was seeing things, was still dreaming. Fast forward 11 years, I'm now 26. I picked up my sister and was driving her home, and she randomly started talking about when my friend and I played the board. Hey, no way. How the fuck did they even know about that?
Do you guys know anybody who actually used the board?
Nope.
I actually know 2.
That's crazy.
Did anything happen with them or?
Yeah.
Really?
Dead ass. One of them was relating to my dad was involved with it when he was like a kid, like middle school.
Was it something that like you can kind of like tell as well, or is it like just like one of those stories that they just, you know, possibly made up, possibly not made up, that they told
I could tell it based on memory what they told me, but this was like something that like he was there to like kind of like hear from it, but I don't think he was part of half of it, but not the other half of the crazy shit. But there is truth about what happened to the house though, even to this day. Like no one's in it. And
Just like what happened?
yeah, like if I remember the story correctly, essentially my dad and his boys, they were pretty much just like, how to describe it? So they would always do a bunch of stupid shit, like a bunch of challenges or like whatever. Like they would either like leave school and like, I don't know, try to like go into like a closed down, like, I don't know, like a fucking warehouse, or like try to hop into like gated neighborhoods, like do a bunch of stupid shit like that, right? And so when they heard about this idea of like the Ouija board, they're like, yo, we gotta try that shit. And I guess their homies ended up like getting the Ouija board, but I think at that time they had to get like like one of their friends' older brother to buy for them. And then they bought that shit. They ended up going over to the friend's house. So
is there an age gate for the Ouija board?
I don't know if there's age gate. I think just them being middle schoolers, I don't think they had really car and money and that kind of shit. It was just kind of
okay.
like on some Stranger Things shit. Like they didn't really. So like, yeah, they needed, because I'm sure their parents wouldn't fucking buy them. I don't think, especially if they're religious, right? So yeah, the older brother, like, I guess had to like buy that shit for them. Was like, yo, I got it. And then, so they like bought that shit. And then my dad and his like little homies, I don't know how many, it was either 5 to 6, like a decent squad. They like went over to the homies like crib, and this was like what, like 9-10 p.m. type shit. And so they didn't really know how to like work that shit or like how it worked. They were kind of just trying to figure that shit out, and they're like reading the instruction, the manual, and let's see, middle school, blah blah blah. This had to been like 90s, right? So I don't even think the internet was like that. Like they were definitely like looking up like, god, what was this, like, what's it, like the earliest fucking Windows computer, like probably one of the earliest shit they had, like that type shit. Damn. Right? Like just to see, but they couldn't really find anything like that was actually helpful. So they kind of just like went off of like, I don't know what this one friend's like memory was, like how it works, like putting the hand over it and then like asking questions and like candles, science, whatever, blah blah blah. They're just like, fuck it. They like tried that shit, and I guess what they described it was is like for, I think it was 2 to 3 hours. For sure it was like a couple hours of them trying that shit. The only weird thing that would happen is there would just be like a weird, they described it as bass, and even my dad really like
bass?
Yeah. They said what was interesting about, so like as they're trying shit, nothing would happen initially for a couple hours because like there wasn't anything moving, there wasn't any sounds necessarily, nothing crazy, but there was this weird sense of almost like either like a pressure or like a faint sound, like almost like, god, how you describe it? Imagine when you're on a guitar that's connected to a speaker and you unplug the cord and then you step on that cord with your toe and then it makes that humming.
Like okay, like a kind of like a staticky, something like.
It's
something
like
that.
like my dad described it. It was like you could tell there was something different, but it was not noticeable. Like it was a
bro,
weird.
That's so creepy. I just got goosebumps, bro. That's actually so fucking creepy.
Yeah, like that's what he described it as. Like he was like, no one really noticed it, but my dad like would say it 3 times, like, you guys hear that, and no one would hear it. But I guess it's because my dad was like, you could kind of like.
Well, was it possible that he was just trying to like fuck with y'all?
I don't even know. Well, the thing is like, he's telling the story of like what happened with him and his buddies, so I don't think he's even trying to like. So this like, but it gets weirder because most of the crazy shit's from coming from his friend, like not him, right? But like on his POV, like that's what he ends up like hearing or feeling at least. So like he said it happened an hour in, and like that's when he realized like maybe it was not like a good idea. Like something definitely was different in the atmosphere. So like 2-3 hours of that shit, and then this is why he said there was for sure a sound like that. It's because when he said when they stopped the Ouija board, they just like put it away, you know, and like nothing happened. It went away. It was gone. And then he mentioned it again to everybody. Yeah, that sound.
Oh my god.
And so,
dude, that's so creepy.
But it gets weird. It doesn't stop there. It gets worse. So in other words,
of course it gets worse. That's why I don't fuck with that shit.
They came back to it. So the next weekend they go back to it. They wanted to try it again because like dude was mad that you know, he had to like do some chores for his like older brother. So like, I don't know, just like buy that shit for him. So it's like, fuck this shit, dude. I want to see some crazy shit. So like they went over weekend, they did it again. This is where things got like a bit interesting because he said an hour in it was that same sound, but this time something did actually happen. One of the dudes was asking a random question. You know, the typical like, oh, if you're here, like move something, or like, is there someone with us, like that kind of question. And so when that was asked, all of a sudden my dad said like that sound like disappeared for like a good like 5-10 seconds, and then that's when we ended up like hearing the house silence for a bit, and one of the clocks ended up moving, and that's like the basic ringing clock, like the actual cartoon ones, like you know, it's the fucking 90s, like they still had that shit. So that shit like shoved, and the way I would describe it, at least the way he like kind of described it to me, was like, imagine if you used your hand to kind of move it maybe like 5 inches, that kind of shit, right? So it was enough that like when the sound went silent and then that moved and then everybody looked over and noticed it moved, everybody's like, oh shit. Everybody had different reactions. My dad was just on like red alert, like just like cautious as fuck, like, oh shit, like that man's in the hood.
Who wouldn't be? What the fuck?
Yeah.
One other kid got hyped as hell because, you know, being a fucking middle schooler, it's like that's what he wanted, right? He's like, oh cool. Like he said, the other dude's just like kind of like being technical. He's like scientifically trying to think of like, oh, it's got to be the AC. Like everyone had a completely different reaction.
Oh my.
Like on some head ass.
You always have that dude. That's the win, bro.
Yeah, it's the win. Yeah. The dude that's hyped, excited. The dude that's like just, and then one of the dude didn't even care. He honestly just didn't flinch. He'd probably seen some shit. I don't even think he Yeah, there's one dude that was just unfazed. He didn't even, was not flinching.
Damn.
But my dad was definitely cautious. Like, he was like, oh shit, like something actually happened. And then essentially after that happened, that's when they ended up going deeper and deeper into that shit. So they did it for like a couple more hours. And this is where they kind of like ended on like a bad note for that night. I think what ended up happening was after asking more questions and moving that shit, I don't remember what exactly was asked. I think it was the same shit probably. Like, I don't know, make a sound if you hear it, like do something. Apparently they ended up hearing like a loud crash in the window, like behind all of them in that room. And they all like stopped and looked out. A window was not even like damaged, cracked, or nothing. They ended up going downstairs. So their room's upstairs. So they go downstairs, they check out, I guess, like the backyard or whatever to see if they're like, maybe there's like a baseball in the bottom. Maybe, you know, who knows? Maybe someone threw some shit. Nothing was there. No bird, no ball, no basketball, nothing. And so there was just a crash for free, like a whole ass MP3 for fun. Like nothing happened. And at that point, they kind of got like spooked. And one of well, actually, no, it was my dad. It was basically like, yeah, we gotta stop this shit. It's about to get worse and worse. And then it was already kind of late at that point too. So they ended up stopping that shit. And this is when they were doing like sleepover still. So like, you know, that was like the last thing they did for the night. And then I guess when they were sleeping over, there was one thing that my dad also ended up only noticing, because I think at this time he was the only one in his friend group that was a light sleeper, apparently. So everyone being a deep sleeper, nothing happens. You're knocked out, you don't hear nothing, like nothing wakes you up.
That's the worst, dude.
So,
You're the only one who gets up. Oh my god.
So he's like the light sleeper, and what he ends up waking up to, because he is a light sleeper, is the sounds of a, I guess how he described it, almost like a bird's claw just scratching the window very, very slowly.
Oh my, bro, I'm sorry to look behind me, bro. Nah, dude.
he ends up hearing that shit. And what's interesting is that as he's looking at the window, he deadass told me that like the sound was continuing even though he was looking at the window. Clearly nothing is like on there. There's no like, it's not like a hand, it's not a bird, there's no bug, there's no reason.
Maybe
for
it was
that.
like a branch or some shit.
And so that's what he kind of got up to look at the window just in case maybe there actually was something. And the window, it wasn't really close by any trees or anything. It was like pretty much in the open. He looked up and down to see like literally any possible fucking animal, bird, branch, whatever, nothing. And this is what definitely got him, is that like he was kind of hesitant. He put his ears literally on the window, and he literally, the way he described it was like, imagine if you had your Bose headset and the surround sound of
What's good, gang? I hate to interrupt the video, but these two bums over here,
Bums?
they be making me say all this shit.
What
So
the fuck?
if you want to help your
what the
boy
hell?
Sure out, subscribe, like, comment, you know, help us do well, and let's get back to it.
of a sound going from top to bottom. So he literally audibly heard the scratching sound still moving, if that makes sense.
On the window?
Yeah, he put his ear. He could distinctly hear that shit. Like if you put your ear on the window, it was passing by his ear slowly.
What?
Like,
and there's like no visible scratches.
there's
or
no
anything on
bug or
the-
nothing. Not a claw, not a nothing. Like literally like an invisible fuck is literally just scratching that shit slowly. And he heard that shit move. Like he wasn't moving. Like his ears just stuck to one shit, and he heard it like moving past his ear. And once it moved past his ear, that's he was like, yeah, fuck this shit. And so yeah, he ended up I think at that night pretty much just, I'm trying to remember how this happened. I think he ended up just telling his homies, or woke up his parents, or yeah, his homies parents, and then ended up calling his own parents so he could like go home. He was like, fuck this shit. He didn't want to do it.
Yeah,
That shit. Yeah,
like, I'm good.
He was like, fuck that shit. And then so fast forward, but hold up, there's more. Next weekend, this is where it starts to fuck everybody else too. So what's interesting is that the weekend after that, so that was the second weekend, then the third weekend, then ended up hanging out at a different homie's crib. So it's different from the first crib that they were at like the first two times. But the interesting thing is that like the first two house, that friend, he wasn't at the third hangout for that weekend. And everybody was asking like what happened to him, or like what's he been up to. And one of the friends ended up telling my dad like, oh yeah, like they haven't been able to get some sleep, and there's been a lot of weird stuff happening at their house recently. And then the friend kind of just described it as like a poltergeist. That's like the word he described. It was like things are moving around, doors are moving, there's footsteps, there's creaking, there's a lot of that shit for the most part just happening, right? And so I guess
From what it sounds like, it seems like everyone, except obviously the guy who was dealing with the shit, it seemed like everyone was kind of like not aware or surprised by the situation. Like it was like, okay, we fucked with the Ouija board in someone else's house. Like, oh, he's not showing up to school. Why? You know, what's the reason?
yeah,
like,
that's exactly, I mean, that's exactly it. That's probably why they even sold that to kids to begin with, because I think even kids were still skeptical. Yeah, back then, I don't know if they're fearless or they're stupid, but like I think back then there's,
that's crazy.
what the fuck, I got
Damn,
stabbed.
bro, what
Stalagmite, damn. What happened?
What the fuck is a stalagmite?
Bro, I'm wondering that shit too, bro. No.
It's the first time I heard that stalagmite.
Fucking stalagmite. Let me see if I can find this shit. So they're like asking like, yeah, like, you know, like where is homeboy and what's happening? And they told him. And then that's when my dad ended up telling them, like what he ended up hearing that night, the whole scratching situation. And that's when everyone realized like, oh shit, you think it's from the Ouija board, which sounds retarded because it's like, what the fuck else, right? And I think that's when everyone started talking about like whether, yeah, right? Like, it's like, what the fuck else? They end up talking about like, I guess, how is there a way to like undo it or remove it, like at this late in, you know, 3 weeks in, right?
No, that's late, bro.
And so they had a bright idea of doing the Ouija board again because they talked to the homeboy the week following and they got word from him for sure that like, yeah, you know, his story that weekend while he was gone was that, so that same scratching on the window, he heard it too. Doors would open. There are times where he's sleeping and he's watching the door just slowly open right in front of him, and he'd be too scared to even like walk out to see if there's something there. And then what definitely got him, I think the most, is out of all that shit, he ended up seeing something. And so my friends are like, what the fuck do you see? So he heard that loud crash in the window again, like the first time, but he said this one sounded louder than ever. And so he ended up going up to the window to look out, and he can't really see in the backyard, but he says he saw some kind of shadowy figure. He wasn't able to kind of distinctively know if it was or wasn't. So he goes in his room, finds a flashlight, goes out to his window, flashes the flashlight through the window so he can kind of like scout that bitch out. And as he's scanning that flashlight around the horizon of his backyard, lo and behold, according to him, this is what my dad said, as he shined the flashlight to a certain area in the backyard, he ends up seeing what he calls and claims a Native American standing and staring back at him in his own backyard. And at that point,
so pissed off at my kids if they do that in my house, bro.
Dude, and at the point he said Native
kids.
American, like it was like, oh shit, because yeah, we're in Texas and like, yeah, that's a, I mean shit, Texas is one of the big battle zones between all the fucking like all.
Well, was it like one of those scenes that's like he was just like with the most like stern face just staring you down, like
was he looking at him or like how, like what do you look like?
He literally, the way he described it, because like I guess around this time they kind of knew about Native Americans because that's like when they taught Texas history and that's like part of it, right? The fucking Apache Comanche bullshit. He described it like they had like the same outfit, robe, dress. He had a little like, I guess you could say like a, I think it was like a band or like something around his noggin. It wasn't the big chief one. It was like the regular one. He was like a regular Native American. He had like the feathers around it too. He was holding something, but he couldn't really tell. But he definitely had the outfit, the skin tone. He looked like hella old. But the way he described it, this is what got me when I heard it. He described it as if it was a fake, you know, kind of like clay model at a museum. Like it wasn't real. Like a human, you can kind of see it slightly moving or breathing.
That's so creepy.
The way he described it was like a statue.
The hell?
And it did not move, flinch, or anything. That's what's interesting about it. It didn't seem like a real person. It almost looked like a Native American statue, like a fake clay, that kind of shit.
So it didn't move, like
not
because
at
okay.
all.
So the first thing I would think of is like, or like what I would do is like, if I'm seeing that, it automatically. Well, I obviously that never happened to me, so I don't know how I would actually react. But like one of the possibilities would be like me, I would just get frozen and I would just stare at it.
It's
while it stares back at me, right? Like that's one of the possibilities. So is that what he did? And also like,
well, here's what got him frozen. And this is also what adds to it. At that like time that he's looking out, you see trees, you see bushes, you see grass, all of it moving slightly by the wind. Yeah, himself, the Native American, his clothes and everything did not move an inch. Like that dude just is like almost no clipped into reality. That's the way he described it. Like literally everything, because yeah, if you're standing in that same area, your clothes should react by slight wind, by anything, right? Whether your feathers, your clothes, well, that's what we can kind of distinct like reality in reality is like it reacts with the environment. He described that Native American as just not reacting with the environment at all and not moving at all, just a complete fucking statue. Like yeah, you would see literally trees and leaves slightly brushing and moving naturally, but not even his clothes or hair at all, just there, like such a.
So how long did he stare at him for?
He definitely stared at it for a good 20 seconds until he kind of just finally broke himself out of it and just literally went back to bed because he just refused to even like move out of his room.
Went back to bed?
No, he
What?
well yeah, under the covers type shit, because you know they're fucking middle schools. They didn't really. He was definitely not gonna check outside by himself either, and he definitely was gonna leave his crib because at that point he's just.
How can you go back to bed after that though?
How could you go back to bed?
Yeah.
Well, he's not sleeping, but he's in bed like under the covers hiding rather than like, you know, actually sleeping. Because yeah, at that point I don't know what else he can do, but yeah, he literally just no choice but to hide under the covers. That's how he described it at least. And so then when he pretty much told that story, they were like, all right, we gotta fix this shit. Everyone in the squad's like, all right, let's get the Ouija board and try to like fix this. So then the following weekend, on the 4th weekend, they get back to the crib. They get the Ouija board out. This part's kind of fuzzy. I'm trying to remember exactly what they did and said. I think it's just like the same thing over and over again, but this time they try to like make it leave or like say goodbye or like go back or like you're not one. I don't know.
Say
like,
goodbye.
Yeah, like
Goodbye.
basic like I'm like I had ass as if it would work. And I think this is where the first time something about the Ouija board actually happened, like the board itself. The way my dad described it was like when they're using the board the entire time, like the thing, I guess I don't know what you would call it. It has like that little glass. It's like a triangle and it moves. It never moved for the weeks they used it ever. But on the 4th week when they were telling it to leave or like you're not welcome, that's when they had their hand on it. And that's when they realized it was actually kind of starting to move. And usually those are kind of hard to tell because in the videos, like 2 people could just kind of move it themselves.
Yep.
But the way my dad was describing it,
yeah, go on, sorry.
yeah, the way he was describing it was like it was moving. And the funny thing is, I don't even think like they would intentionally do this because it was the homie's haunted crib. His hand was on it. And then the other dude that was like kind of indifferent, like he was unfazed. So that dude's hands were on it. And the little piece of shit was moving to the word no. Because I know the board has like yes and no in letters, right? Or numbers, I think.
Bro said straight up no.
It literally just said
I'm
no.
good.
Yeah. And then at that point, like that's when the dude's like where it happened at his crib. That dude was like getting mad. He's like, bro, what the fuck? Like, you're not wanted, bro. Like, go. Like he was getting mad and shit. And then he was like saying, like, what the fuck you mean no? Like, this is my house. You're not welcome. And then that's when things got interesting, okay? When he said that, that's when my dad heard that same sound again, the little like bass thing. But this time it was a little bit louder. And he mentioned how everyone heard it this time because it was louder. And then everyone like freaked out. Everyone got silent because they could hear that shit. It was like that bass sound, and everyone was like, oh shit. And then that's when like one of the dude that was like hype, he was like, what the fuck is like that's what you were hearing? He was like, yeah, like you guys hear that shit too? And everyone was quiet. And then this is when, bro, when I heard this shit, at this point I thought my dad was capping, but I don't really know. He said when the bass got loud, that's when all the lights, or the power rather, in the house went off for a good like 3-5 seconds. But the bass was still active. Dead ass. I was like, oh shit.
Oh my god.
So literally imagine hearing the bass, and then everything's just dark as fuck, power's off, but you still hear that bass. And the bass, like if it was, I guess, from some electronic device, if the lights and power is off, where the fuck's the bass coming from? At least that's what I was thinking in my mind. So I'm like, what the fuck? And so then the bass goes away, and then the power and lights go back on. And then that's when even the parents go upstairs, because at this point now everyone's involved, right? So what the and so the parents got mad because they thought maybe, I don't know, the kids like did some shit, because naturally, you know, your power goes out but no one else in the neighborhood is. Maybe your kids, I don't know, doing some stupid shit, right? So they went upstairs, they're like mad as hell, like, hey, like what the fuck y'all doing, like what is happening? And then they're kind of like explaining the whole thing to the parents. And then
how do you even explain a Ouija board to like parents?
It was funny because the parents only really got mad because it affected the house that one time, so that's when they told them to stop using it. Because yeah, they explained it to them what was happening, and you know, because I guess the parents, like, they knew it was happening, but they didn't really think the Ouija board was real, as every American, right? Well, I don't know, a lot of people. But yeah, and then what ended up happening to my homie's friend's crib, basically the week after, they ended up having to move out the house. Yeah.
Damn, that's cool. That is quick, bro.
Yeah, because basically he wasn't there for the whole week. Apparently after they left the crib, that's when randomly at like the backyard, they would hear like a death scream. Just constantly loud.
A death scream?
Yeah. But that's what my friend would, or actually no, that's what the parents described to us, because I guess they're more familiar with like that sound. But like that's what they would hear in the backyard. And all the aggressive poltergeists would get worse and worse in the house. Eventually the parents were fed up, they just moved out. And to this day, no one's lived in that house or moved in. Like, I could drive to the house right now, it's still vacant.
Bro, if you actually like heard that shit after playing with the fucking Ouija board.
Hell no, see, this is what I'm talking about, bro.
Yeah, you hear that shit?
If I heard that in the middle of the night, bro, I'm moving that same night, bro. See, they waited way too long. A week, not too long, bro. I'm moving that same night.
Yeah, that shit's goddamn.
Bro, I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight. Why we gotta do this like at my night, bro? I can't sleep tonight. I bet like somebody hears that shit, you're still gonna have that guy that's like, oh, it's probably the wind.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
probably the wind. It's probably
Yeah.
Probably the wind.
Probably the win.
Probably like the neighborhood cat. You know what I'm saying? The stray cat or something.
It's definitely the win. Let's just mass produce the Ouija board. Make some money.
It's just fucking Bob over the Native
Yeah.
American living in our backyard.